We're Greg and Ashley Garza. We have two daughters. Karina is 14 and Aubrey is 8. We've been a part of the church for about 5 years. We've been married 7 years.
Ashley and I grew up in the same city, but our stories are much different.
Growing up in New Braunfels had some challenges. My mother was a teenager when she had me, and at the age of 2 years old, she had to make a decision because I had been abused by her husband at the time. And she decided that it would be best that my grandparents take over parental rights and raise me.
My parents divorced when I was in the 3rd grade. My father was in and out of prison growing up. We were poor, just living on barely anything. Mom was working as hard as she could.
When I was about 10 years old, my great-grandfather passed away from brain cancer. And that was really traumatic. And so my grandmother, it was just her and I. She was basically a single mom and already in her 70s. Trying to, take care of me as a teenager was not easy at all.
I started doing drugs in 8th grade. Led to a series of events of trying to commit suicide, just going through things in middle school and ultimately leading into high school.
I was looking for my value and looking for that void to be filled by just being loved. And I found myself pregnant at 15.
A year out of high school, I started getting into drugs a lot heavier. I did do some jail time. When I got out, I was just starting to get myself back into work. One night, we all went out to a bar, and I was with a friend from work. I even bragged to my buddy. I said, "Hey, look at that girl over there. Watch this. I'm gonna get her number."
So when I met Greg that night at the bar, I had already been married to Karina's dad and had been divorced. I was a single mom, and at that point, I gave him my number. And within a few weeks, we were living together. And not far after that, I would say maybe a few months later, we found out we were having a baby. It was hard because here we were, a blended family, not married. We did everything backwards. We were both broken relationships, broken homes, trying to figure it out on our own.
As we going through these times, I think about marrying Ashley. And I text Ashley, I'm like, "Hey, you want to get married?" And she's like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's get married," through a text message.
I was very hesitant. I think I said yes because I was hopeful that things would get better, and it was still so hard.
Jesus wasn't a part of our lives. We felt that we were lost causes.
Even though I believed that there was a God, I just didn't feel worthy.
And I didn't know the version of Jesus who I knew now.
So we moved to Dallas in 2013. My biological mother was back in my life. Her and my stepdad had offered for us to move up here with them and that they would just give us a fresh new start.
So I already had contacts of people up here in the industry I was already working in. Moved up here June 26th. The next day I had an interview. The following day I had a job. So things went pretty smoothly up here.
I had a coworker who was attending the church. She said, "Oh, there's this church. They meet in a middle school, and I think you should go try it one day."
She said, "Let's go. We're going to try it out." I said, "Okay, I'll go."
We walked in during a marriage series.
And we came in, and God definitely spoke to me in that moment. After service, we met with Pastor Brad and said, "We need some counseling." He worked with us and decided to help us grow and reconnect our marriage.
We get plugged in with people within the church, and Greg had already given his life to Christ. So then I accepted Christ and I was baptized a year later, and we both just were all in.
And ultimately what we felt was just a rejuvenation of our lives, literally just feeling redeemed, feeling the grace that God has given us, just a different joy that we had experienced our entire lives.
Once we realized that Jesus had given his life for us and he had come back from the dead, it was like he was giving us a second chance to be alive again. Where we were broken and we were dead before, now we had a new life.
His comeback allowed us to have our comeback as a couple.
ultimately the cross has the final word. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. Jesus died on the cross, and he has the final word, the final say of who we are.